Hello friends, this is Reflections, a program sponsored by Paducah Cooperative Ministry, where together we do God's work with human hands. I'm Karen Winkel, pastor at United Church of Paducah, and co-host with me is Gregory Waldrop from Fountain Avenue United Methodist. Good to see you, Gregory.
Glad to be right here. Glad to be with you. Glad to be with you all today. We are very glad to have the Executive Director of the Paducah Cooperative Ministry with us, Heidi Suhrheinrich. Heidi, how long have you been at?
Oh my goodness, do you know it'll be almost 10 years this spring?
10 years.
Yes.
Well done.
It's been a little while, but I'm still growing, I'm still learning, I'm still trying to get better at my job.
Well, we're glad you're here with us, and
Thank
we
you.
are hoping to just sort of have a potpourri of all the things that are happening these days at Paducah Cooperative Ministry. Tell us some of the...
Okay. You know, it's been kind of a rough year, a little challenging. I think that not only have our clients felt that, but society in general, as the gas prices have gone up, food prices have gone up, utilities have gone up, and it's certainly been reflected in the needs that we've seen down at the ministry. They have increased this year tremendously. We've broken some records in the wrong direction, you know, and at the same time that we are seeing increased need, we are seeing a little lessening of the donations. And I think it's for the same reason. You know, folks are tightening up their belts and having a little more difficulty making ends meet. So we've been very challenged to keep food on the shelves, to find adequate beds for the homeless folks that have come to our doors, and we've been hustling.
Give us just a little bit of a listing of the things you do in terms of emergency needs there. Obviously, the food pantry is an important thing.
Right. You know, our mission statement is that we seek to do God's work with our human hands by meeting basic human needs in the community. And so hunger is a big part of that. We do, and always have, I think, since we began back in 1973, operated an emergency food pantry. And that's one of the ministries that we've had that has been hit so hard this past year. In fact, in July, we hit a record 500 families in that month that we assisted with groceries. An average this year has been about 415 families, and that's really at least that. I'm not sure exactly what percentage of an increase that is, but you know, from about 375 households to 415 is a big jump.
Right.
And then that's not even the number of folks who really need that emergency food help. That's the number that you are able to help.
Right.
And that's something to bear in mind, I think.
Right. We are limited to McCracken County residents. They do have to meet low-income guidelines. And they're limited to 4 times a year to come and receive emergency assistance. So we helped just under 5,000 times last calendar year. And quite frankly, we broke some records in terms of spending for food pantry needs this past summer.
Because
spent quite a bit of money just trying to keep our shelves stocked.
Because you have to purchase food if that food is not donated, and I think probably folks in the community don't appreciate that enough. That you supplement with your own purchasing what it is that's been given.
And the food comes from interesting places. You know, we do get some government commodities. Interestingly, that has been lowered as well in terms of supply.
Really?
And I speculate we've had hurricanes, we've had tsunamis, we've had fires, and you know, that may have caused the supply to diminish. But government commodities, we have the donated items that come from the community. We try and purchase things like hot dogs, you know, just a little meat. And then we have some businesses that help us out. There are some restaurants that participate in a harvest program where once a week we collect some surplus food that has been frozen all week, and we pick it up once a week, come back and use that. A couple of our grocery stores will set aside produce or, again, bakery items that's surplus. So we use whatever we have. But it was really, summer is a hard time for us. A lot of folks think that in agencies such as ours, winter is the hardest time, but that's not the case. That's not what we're seeing. Summer is really, really the difficult time for us.
Because children are at home.
Children are at home, and a lot of time the donors, the supporters, their schedules change a little bit. in the wintertime, especially around the holidays, people are moved to do something for folks that are less fortunate. And so we actually do pretty well in the wintertime. It's the summertime that we struggle.
One of the things that I want to lift up, and it seems like a small detail, but I think it's also important. Sometimes folks feeling like they're going to be generous in terms of supporting the food pantry will donate large size cans, industrial size cans of food, and I know that might be helpful for a family that's itself quite large, but that that may not meet a need.
Right. We're supplying food for households of 1 to 6 or 7, but the smaller family sizes are certainly better.
Rather have a case of little cans.
Case of green beans.
Yeah.
Because we don't
4 big.
prepare meals.
Yeah.
We are not a soup kitchen. The homeless shelter folks provide their own meals, do their own cooking, so we don't have any institutional corporate meal situations like some of our other agencies in town would do. But you had asked about other services, and I know that most people think of the food pantry when they think of us, but a lot of folks are surprised about the homeless shelter. That program does keep us so very busy. 40-bed homeless shelter for individuals and families with children, and that's just a real growing need. Another program that we're best known for is emergency financial assistance. Folks that come in on a day like today and say, my utility bill has got a disconnect notice, I've got 3 days to get it paid, I have this much, but I'm short this much, can you help? Or I've got a rent eviction notice, I'm behind in my rent, I'm going to have to move out, I don't know where I'll go, can you help me with my rent? Occasionally we get folks that come in and say, I had to go to the emergency room, the doctor says I need this high blood pressure medicine, or I'm diabetic, I need insulin, whatever, I can't afford to get it, can you help? So those are the types of urgent financial needs that we see on a regular basis, and try to assist as best we can.
And my guess is that you have maybe a budget for the month that allows you to spend. And
we take what we budget for the year and we divide it up into 52 weeks. And every Monday morning we start with that pot of money for that program. And we go until that week's money is gone. And then we have to unfortunately tell folks we're out of money for the rest of this week, but we will have money again on Monday. That ensures that annual amount makes it all the way around the calendar year, and people don't ever have to wait more than a couple of days until we have funds available again. That seems to work out the best for us.
Just for those who are watching, I know that Paducah Cooperative Ministries' telephone number is not in the phone book, and so I want to be sure that we lift up that number several times and also tell folks where PCM is located.
Right. Purely accidental, but the phone number is 442-6795, and the address is 402 Legion Drive. We're right behind the Mike Smith dealership out on Irvin Cobb, and the American Legion is right across the road. It's pretty easy to find, I think.
It is.
And we're there Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. So.
And we'll mention that again at the end of our program.
What is the total budget that you operate out of? I know you have, how many employees there? You have 4 employees? Or?
We have 5 full-time employees covering the shelter and the programs in the office. We have an AmeriCorps member that's with us for her 2nd year, and then we have a couple of part-time workers that help us on the weekends.
And the total budget for the whole?
Is about $383,000.
So it's not just a small operation. This isn't a
Right.
large operation.
And most of it is local funding, which amazes me that we do that. It's incredible. I try not to think too hard about it. It's sort of like a patchwork quilt, that all these pieces, the bits from the churches, the bits from the individuals, groups, concerned folks, comes in and helps bring that whole thing together. Now, we do receive some state funding that helps us with the homeless shelter program, and a little bit of FEMA money that helps us purchase groceries. But the largest bulk of our budget actually comes from local assistance, local donations.
How many churches are a part of the cooperative ministry?
We have 45 member congregations, and there are maybe a half a dozen or more that support. Now, the difference between a supporting congregation and a member congregation is that the member congregations have actually made a commitment to do 4 things. Number 1, that they will commit to provide financial or in-kind support on an annual basis, whatever they feel that they can provide. They will appoint 2 members of their congregation to serve on our PCM council. That's our governing body, and we meet once a year to vote in the executive board and any other big policy changes. They promise to pray for us, to lift up the ministry, and one other thing that I'm forgetting at the moment, but those are the main things that they have promised. Other congregations are kind of getting to know us and supporting us as they're able, but maybe haven't taken that step. So it speaks well, I think, for this community. It is not a huge community, but the faith congregations are very strong and very supportive, and it's wonderful to see all these denominations. Just almost every denomination in McCracken County is represented and working together on this.
And I know something that's coming up is a marvelous opportunity to feel the connection, because each of those faith communities is contributing as they are moved to, but I know that there are occasions during any year in which those folks come together for worship.
Yes, not all about crises and emergencies.
Exactly.
We do some other things too, and it's about bringing people together. And one of the things that we do is try to offer 1 or 2 ecumenical services, worship services for the community to come together, as you said, in a spirit of one family, one neighborhood, and it's always different. Every time we do it, we select a different denomination to host, and then the participants come from all of the different faith traditions, and it stretches us a little bit, because folks that are always accustomed to worshiping in this way may experience some different things that they hadn't felt before, and they get a sense of the broader neighborhood, I think.
So that's happening at your church.
Fountain Avenue, that's right.
The 18th of November.
Right,
for
our
anyone that's
Thanksgiving
watching.
service.
Sunday
is
night before Thanksgiving, be at 6:30.
6:30 at Fountain Avenue on the 18th, Sunday evening. We always do it on the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and goodness, we've been doing it for at least 20 years. It's wonderful to see.
Good gift.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that makes a community stronger is when there are relationships across
All the
denominational-
differences that we can invent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful for, say, the Methodist folks to go worship in a Baptist church. They might not normally cross those thresholds, or the Lutherans going to the Presbyterian church. I've always driven past that church, but I had no idea what it looked like inside and who the folks were that worshiped there. So we're getting people to cross some barriers and some thresholds that help unite us all in one
I always
body.
loved as well, particularly in the Thanksgiving service, the interfaith component with the Temple Israel being
Right.
part of the event.
And that's a good point, Gregory. We are an interfaith ministry. We're not just a Christian organization. We're supported by Temple Israel, our Jewish neighbors, and I just really appreciate that diversity. I really do. I think it's wonderful.
Well, and part of my imagination takes me to 15 years from now, when there might be an organized Muslim community, worshiping community that is inspired to take part in supporting PCM and being in relationship with all of us.
Yeah, PCM has a way of growing and stretching everybody that's involved with it, whether you're a volunteer or a supporter or a staff member or even a client. It just kind of stretches you a little bit, and you grow and expand into places you hadn't been before.
I know you have sort of a program going these days to help build up the food pantry. Tell us a little bit about that.
We are really excited about this. This was a result of a brainstorm after this really hard summer that I was telling you about. We know that folks want to participate and they care, but we are all incredibly busy. It's a crazy, hectic world, and sometimes it's more than we can do to take care of our own selves. So the PCM staff are always trying to figure out how can we make this as easy as possible for people to participate. So our thought was, what if we just asked each congregation or each group to just be responsible for one item every month, and that the goal being a consistent supply of food that was fairly well balanced, reflective of what we needed, and ongoing. And so basically what we developed was, Gregory, we're going to ask your church to be the cereal church. And if every member in your congregation, every time they come in the front door, will bring a box of cereal, and just it becomes a habit. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to spend time in the aisles of the grocery store wrestling with, what should I buy and how much should I spend? Just a box of cereal. This morning before I came, we had deliveries from the spaghetti congregation and the spaghetti sauce congregation. Fabulous timing.
Hey, that is. Well done.
We've got a macaroni and cheese church. We've got a tuna fish church. We've got a chili church. And we are getting...
I think we're the cracker church, actually.
Okay.
So.
I think we're the peanut butter congregation. Karen, do y'all know?
Well,
I
thought we were Vienna
canned
sausages.
meat, I think.
We were Vienna sausages last month, but then I got a letter that said that we were pasta now.
Okay.
So, but one of the things that occurs to me is it isn't just participating congregations or individuals in the community. I'm thinking of True North Yoga that has
Yoga for food class.
A yoga for food class where the class is free, and if folks are inspired, they bring food donations, and that group has gotten quite excited about participating, and one person takes great pains to count, whatever the
let them
items
know what
are
they've
that have been
achieved.
contributed, and that class is proud
Yes.
to participate in supporting PCM.
Something really neat that happened the other day was we had a call from a student at Paducah Middle School. The student council had heard about this, and Paducah Middle School wanted an item that they would be assigned, and I thought, boy, imagine if this really takes off and we grow even beyond the congregations to the schools and the Girl Scout troops or whatever. We don't want it to be a burden on people, and we know that times are hard for everybody. But if we could just get everyone into the habit of one thing every week, and then we get, and we make it easy. And so we've gotten really good feedback, actually, from congregations and from folks that are excited about this and are responding. And, every couple months, every other month or so, we'll change it up so you're not stuck being the macaroni and cheese church or the cereal church. You get to do something different for a while. So we'll give it a good 6 months and see how it goes. But so far, we're getting really good response on that. So we're hopeful.
Now, is anybody the Green Bean Church, or
I actually think the temple was a green bean church
really?
for a little
Okay,
while.
good,
Yeah.
good.
We used to think we'd never run out of green beans,
Yeah,
but
really.
I'm telling you, we ran out of those this summer too. We ran out of everything this summer. And there's some interesting things coming up as well, ways communities can help with the hunger problem. Groceries for Good comes up the end of November. That's with Paducah Sun and the area grocery stores, and that helps quite a few agencies. And then during the Christmas holidays, of course, there's Noble Park Christmas lights. And all of us agencies that do food pantries look forward to those events. Mail carriers in the spring. But it's getting from one big food drive all the way around to the next one and surviving in the meantime that's so difficult. So that's why we're trying to establish some easy habits within the community to keep us going all year round, not just have to wait for the big food drives.
I'm thinking in the time that we have remaining, because we're talking about present need and current involvement, peer into your crystal ball and talk a little bit about what is coming for PCM, or some of the things that you would like to see happen in the community. Talk about the future a little bit.
Well, I think one of the things we're really going to have to address is the continuing growth in homelessness. We had a 26% growth in shelter admissions from one year to the next. One population that we're hoping to specifically address are women coming out of incarceration, mainly because we were getting a lot of letters from women at this prison or that prison that were from McCracken County. They were being released, but they didn't have anywhere to go. And they wondered if the PCM shelter could be their place to come home to. And I thought, boy, that's a shame, you know, that's your placement, your home placement. And we didn't feel like we had quite the program to be able to meet those needs as well as we would like. So we are hopeful that with the military property that we will be getting on North 12th Street, that we can do a little transitional housing program for women coming out of incarceration. The statistics have been staggering in terms of 70% of women return back into incarceration after release, and I just know those women aren't thinking they will ever go back when they're released. But if they don't have anything to come out to, they don't have the resources, can't find the job, don't have the family support, you know, the odds are really stacked against them.
Right, a lot of things in place to drag them down.
There's a film that came out, I think, in the last year or so that was a Hollywood film where the main character is a woman who's been released recently. It's called Sherry Baby with Maggie Gyllenhaal. And it, for someone who is not familiar with that journey, the film makes it very clear that women coming out of incarceration need and deserve support, that it is and that there are broken relationships often, so that that net of support that might have been felt in the past has been tattered a little bit. So
you really need a holistic approach to look at employment, to look at any substance abuse issues, to family relationships and healing, education. There's if you want to really be of help to somebody, you're going to have to look at the whole picture, I believe.
And I think PCM has that orientation, not just about that, but kind of in general. You are looking at the whole person, I think, every time you're serving an individual or family.
I think that's important, especially with our homeless shelter. We try and do that. We look at all the reasons for the homelessness and what are the barriers to them achieving success back at independent living. It's, in my opinion, it's not good enough just to simply get them back into a dwelling if we haven't addressed the reasons for the homelessness in the first place. Basically, you're setting them up for failure, and we don't want to do that.
Having worked in a prison in a couple of occasions, statistically, it was interesting that the place where you could count on the least recidivism, the least return, was places where they had developed trusting relationships. That in places where there were no relationships, where you just sort of went institutionally back to a cold, rather barren environment, the recidivism, the return was these high numbers. But where you had developed within the system, within the prison, and when they went out, trusting, supportive relationships, it's almost 0% of people that went back. I mean, it's almost that clear-cut determiner.
It really seems to make a difference if somebody's got a coach or a cheerleader or a mentor. The chances of success are so much greater than if it's just up to them, to figure out what to do. And folks will give up too easily. They'll hit a little bump in the road and just throw up their hands and think they can't do it. And if they've got a coach standing by the roadside or supportive congregation or somebody that's a source of support saying, we can don't give up, we can work our way through this, we've got some options here, we've got some choices, and kind of encourage them along, folks would be surprised how far they can come. But change is hard to do all by yourself.
I want to just switch gears just a little bit, because I'm just really thinking about the good and important work you're doing, and you're not Paducah Cooperative Effort. You're Paducah Cooperative Ministry, and you're not simply a nonprofit organization seeking to meet the needs of the community, but a ministry. How, we have just a little bit of time remaining, how do all of you who work together, either as staff or volunteers, how is this for you ministry, and what sustains you? Because you're confronting, you really are on the front lines in so many ways. How do you work together to make this ministry?
I think we feel a call to it, Karen, and we realize we're in partnership with God in this. It's not just us. We're there because we really want to be there, and most of us have been there for a little while. We don't have a lot of turnover. We see our job as to plant seeds. You know, we plant seeds. We come in, we plant seeds. We plant seeds. Some of them we get to see the results. Most of them we don't. I think that's how we sustain it, is in knowing our job is just to be the seed planter, that God is the harvester, and that can be down the road. It's not our timing, it's God's timing. So we may feel like we've maybe utterly failed with someone. You never know. They may come back around the second and third time. Eventually those seeds dig a little deeper down and take root. Or it may be somewhere down the road that we'll never see, we'll never know about. But we know that we do our part, and then the rest is on God's side and on His terms. So that helps us to keep going, is to understand that we're not responsible for the outcome. We're just responsible for planting the seeds and doing what we can right there. But it is a sense of partnership.
And I would think that it's that connection to God's sustaining spirit that has enabled all of you to serve so faithfully and so long, because were that not the case, you might have quite a bit of turnover, or as people feel overwhelmed by the scope of the need.
And as Gregory said, relationships are everything, and there is a strong, tight-knit sense of relationship within the staff, and you know, we will laugh when we need to laugh, and we will be there to step in and give somebody a hand when we sense that's needed. And it's a very supportive environment, I think, that we're fortunate enough to work in.
About out of time, but tell us, all the folks that are listening, how they can be a part of this, sharing this call that you live out.
Well, the main thing is to understand that every little bit helps. From the folks that send a $20 check every month, because that's their commitment, to the groups that call and say, give us a food item, and we will make sure that every month we bring it in. There are lots of ways. There are volunteer opportunities as well. So
give us the number and the
I knew you were going to
address
ask for that. 442-6795 is the phone number, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 at 402 Legion Drive. And we invite folks to just come in and see what's going on, talk to the staff, see for themselves. This is the community's ministry. They should know what happens down there, what's going on, what will their gifts and donations be used for, and how.
Heidi, thank you so much for being with us
You're
today.
welcome. Thank you for having me.
And for doing God's work not only with human hands but human heart. Gregory, it's good to be with you again. Thank you for joining us. Do join us again next time on Reflections, where together we do God's work with human hands, partnering with PCM. Shalom.
Shalom.